Anyways, we've got my movie this week, the last one we watched, that being the 2019 film Made in Abyss, Journey's Dawn. This is the first half of the TV anime Made in Abyss, cut down into a movie. At some point we might watch a second one, who knows. This one takes place between the fucking start where we meet our main protagonist Rico and who she later finds Reg, and they want to get down to the bottom of the abyss, and we follow them down the abyss as they go through the first 3 layers until they get to the hanging trees upside down part where they meet Ozen, which is a white whistle. They get some lore dumps about what Rico is, potentially her mother's whereabout, which is the big goal. Rico wants to go find her mother at the bottom of the abyss, and that's basically the first Made in Abyss. It's a setup movie. It's a lot of lore information and world building. Anyways, Tanner, what's your fun fact?
Fun fact: it's a recap movie.
Oh, okay. That's a great fact.
Dude, I couldn't find shit.
I have an actual fun fact. This probably is not going to come as a shock to you guys, but one of the background artists for the anime actually does, he works for Ghibli as well.
Oh, that's fun. Another fun fact, the composer for Made in Abyss has been a guest on the Trash Taste podcast. He's an Aussie boy.
That guy's my fucking goat.
Yeah. Another fun fact. Go on, Jackson.
No, you give your fun fact. I already gave one.
No, it's fine. You finish your thought. My fun fact is subject to go say your thing.
I was just going to say that the composer's a fucking goat. This is like a 4-hour OST for this anime. This was, of course, made for just the TV anime, not the fucking sequel movie or season 2. I mean, obviously they're using these songs still for those, but like 4-hour OST for a fucking 13-episode anime is pretty sick. It's super high production. It's really good. It's pretty notoriously one of like the best anime OSTs. People jack it off a ton for valid reason. It's really good and it elevates the movie a lot.
Yeah.
My fun fact is I gave this movie an S-.
Whoa.
Holy based. Personally, I gave it an 8. Yeah, you go, Tanner.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's funniest to follow that up with my ranking, which is a C-.
Holy shit.
Honestly, pretty based too, though, Tanner.
Based for different reasons. I gave it an A+ personally.
I'm still not totally sure where I'm putting it. It's floating somewhere in the B's, though, for me.
Damn.
It's somewhere in that ballpark.
I'll go ahead and give my take on it, since Jackson's the only one who I'm assuming who's seen the actual anime.
No, I've seen it too.
Oh, you've seen it too? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to give my outsider perspective, since, before it was Jackson was low on the movie, so we made him go first. I'm high on the movie. I'll go first on this one, especially I've heard of Made in Abyss. I've never seen it before. Don't know what it's about. This is another example of this is an anime movie that made me want to watch said anime. The other one was, in fact, Demon Slayer, so it's a very high chance that I'm going to probably go watch the Made in Abyss anime at some point. But yeah, I love the animation style. I think that the characters have a lot of personality, and I do like the mystery that this movie sets up. I think that the world building, it's funny that they have world building, but it's such a concealed location. And, they're like, everything we know is here, but also everything we don't know is here. And I mean that in the fact of the abyss is just seemingly endless. Like, they know there's a bottom, but hardly anybody makes it, and anybody who does doesn't make it back. They're setting up a lot of the world in this movie, and they just put so much intrigue into it. And I agree, I think the soundtrack is beautiful for this anime, but I like how with all the secrets they introduce, they also don't immediately answer them. Obviously, it's probably to lure you in to either watch the second movie or to go watch the anime, like I'm probably going to. But I love how cute this movie is. I like how there are like obstacles and challenges, and there's not some, besides like Rick being like a fucking super autonomous robot, there's not like just an easy solution or way around it like in some of these other animes where like, oh, there's a problem, oh, I have a superpower, like in this world they have artifacts and relics. Like, surely the creators could have just been like, hey, I found this relic while digging and it just so happens to help us in this situation. I like the exploration, and I love the pace of the movie. The pace, it's a 2-hour anime movie, which again, or I think it's 2 hours. 2 hours? right?
Yeah, it's like just under.
The pacing was great. I'm used to anime movies, of course. This goes back to fucking Kaguya. But like 2-hour anime movies is unheard of, but I think the pacing was fairly well done in this movie. It did lose me for like a second about 3/4 of the way in. But then it snapped right back for the last bit of it. And this movie left me wanting to watch more. And I think that any movie that can leave that kind of impression, especially just a yearning for more content, is very good. Also based on me giving the rest of why I like this movie. But yeah, that's why I liked it. I thought it was very beautiful movie, very cute, very easy to watch, very easy to get into. And I did watch it in Japanese. I watched it with English subs.
Yeah, we do. We have the Two Wolves on the Guapish podcast here, where Dylan and I are watching in Japanese, and Tanner and Nico watched it in English.
You motherfuckers.
So when we get to the highly emotional scenes, if they didn't have as much impact later on, then you guys know why. Wink, wink.
Mm-hmm.
I guess let me go ahead and contrast Dylan's enthusiasm.
Whatever.
So this movie failed for me on the most fundamental level in that it did not make me interested to go watch the anime. I think I have a lot of the same problems with this movie as I did with the first Evangelion movie, where you can just tell that this is like events and plot points and stuff from another medium being forced into this movie one, and I don't think it does a transition well. Unlike Dylan, I think the pacing is not good at all, and I think it kind of comes down to it does stuff that should be slower too fast, and then does stuff that should be fast too slow. Like, it simultaneously feels like we are blasting through events while also not really having time to absorb anything that should be happening in any given locale. My biggest problem is I just found it boring, to be honest. I wasn't brought into the world. All of the lore dumps just kind of bored me, and I just did not get into this one at all.
I don't really know if there's much argument we can do if you had no interest in the world building at all. So
Yeah.
Cool, that sounds good. Nico, how about you? What do you think about this movie? Why is it a B tier something?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of Tanner's points, honestly. Outside of the world building, okay, I think as a phenomenal world, I think it's super cool. I love the creature designs. I love Reg's design himself. I think it's super fucking sick. And just, yeah, the music, everything outside of the story itself, I think is very well done. The problem is the story here, though, which is, yeah, as Tanner said, they're just cramming a bunch of episodes into one film, and it doesn't really build up to anything is the biggest issue. You're just having that feeling of, when are we getting to the fireworks factory, you know? Like, what even is, like, the big climax for this movie?
The climax is them getting past Ozen.
Mm-hmm.
She was like the big boogeyman that was established when they first got into the Abyss from the fucking what's his name, the big guy.
Uncle.
We've been told, you know, bad things about the White Whistles. They're pretty enigmatic people. And we first meet Ozen, and she's, you know, she fucks him up. She is the main antagonist of the movie. They get past her through their training. I will say, the anime, of course, one of the things they cut out is the training session of them in the third layer or second layer, what a fucking layer it is. It's much more fleshed out. They fucking sped around that shit for brevity.
Yeah, like, I'm certain that me having watched the anime already does negatively impact that portion of it, because I just, at no point did I feel as though there were in particularly any real threat. Like, I don't know, it, like Tanner said, this is just all build up without any sort of, like, you know, big explosion to make it be like, yeah, that was a fantastic time.
Personally, I would disagree. I don't really think that having a big boss or some shit to, like, huddle.
I don't think you need that, but, like, even just, like, any sort of, like, big character moment for them, we don't have that either. Like,
you're saying that Rico's entire motivations being thrown into question isn't a big character moment?
Not particularly.
I'd hard disagree on that personally. I think it completely turns a movie up on its head. As like, yeah, no, she's not. There's like I mean, they literally throw all of her motivations out the fucking window. She's going down there to see her mom. Her mom actually is completely unknown. She may be dead. She may not. She's not the one that wrote that letter. Who fucking knows? We don't know anything about Reg. We saw some notes about him. There's a lot of intrigue based on that. And of course, Rico wants to go see her mom, but maybe she doesn't. Maybe she's actually just getting called to the abyss from that fucking relic that she was reborn in. Maybe it's not of her own free will at all. I think that's very interesting, and I think it adds a lot of intrigue.
I agree.
And
I think all that is very interesting, but like we don't really get any payoff for any of it throughout this film is the issue.
Well, that's the big thing with this too, is obviously, you know, they have to work with their limitations, given that this is, of course, just a TV anime cut down into a movie. This is definitely you're along for the journey, you're not here for the end. And that's just how Main Abyss has always been. And of course, this is coming from a big Main Abyss fan. I've watched all the anime, I've read the entire manga. That's always how it is. The whole point of this is just for the journey. You learn more about the Abyss. You're getting more in-depth knowledge about what's going on, and that's what this movie's doing. It has incredible world building. It does a really good job establishing the stakes, generally what their motivations are. Just everything about the Abyss as a whole is a very interesting topic. There's all these different layers. We don't know a ton about them. So there's so much depth to that, and it's all so intriguing. It all makes you want to keep learning more. It puts you in the place of the characters that want to go down here, discover more about the Abyss, and reach the bottom. And that's what the movie's trying to accomplish, and it accomplishes it very well for me personally. And it reinvigorated my inspiration to want to go and watch the anime again, as Dylan did. So yeah, I think that's more than two wolves for just a language thing. I think it is just if we were sucked into it again over if we didn't really care that much.
One disagreement I have with sort of your beginning point about how like the big climax is like her having her motives like flipped around or whatever. The problem for me is I don't believe Ozen.
Yeah, also same here. I'm sure it's because I've seen the anime, so I know where that stuff goes, but like, yeah, I just didn't believe her.
Me personally, at that point, even my beliefs were thrown into question. So now I'm invested in what Rico's invested in to figure out what the actual truth is. I personally don't always need a bow on top of my stories. I don't necessarily need something to clench off the movie. I think, which is why I'm probably invested in the games and everything that I am. I'm perfectly fine being along for the ride and experiencing things as the character does, especially when I know that this is only the first half. This is just the beginning of the adventure. Like, I know there's a second movie. I mean, maybe it'd be different if I didn't know, or I guess I didn't know until the end of the movie, but like, I know that in stories like this, more will get added on, and I am totally down for the ride. And that's just me personally. That's not necessarily a movie thing or whatever. I am all for world building, story building, lore discovery, questions being answered. I personally am of the favor of, I'm fine if more questions become created than answers, especially if I know more is coming down the line. And I think that adds to the intrigue to this, because I think that's a very powerful way to draw people in. Personally, I can't say that it is a way to draw people in, as clearly it didn't work on like 1.5 of you. But yeah, for that reason, I remember in that instance where it's like, well, shit, now I don't know if Ozen's telling the truth or not. Guess I'm gonna have to find out. And that's what intrigued me and pulled me along into this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really don't understand how the Ozen thing's a criticism at all. If anything, it just goes into the themes of the mystery of the Abyss. Like, yeah, who cares if she's telling the truth or not? She's really just trying to give motivation to this child. Because she does, as you kind of saw when Liza mentioned that she was pregnant with Rico, she's not a big fan of her. Also, she thought Rico was an entire bird. She fucking left her for that bell or whatever the fuck they're bringing up when they're, ascending the Abyss. Mm-hmm. She's not a big fan of Rico. She thinks that, probably that Rico's a big part of why maybe her and Liza aren't as close as they are. And she, because of that, she has all these preconceived notions of her. But, you flip the script on her as she learns more about Rico. You see her perseverance and potentially parallels towards Rico and Liza. And maybe Ozen is lying to her. Maybe all of the things she initially said were totally correct. Maybe Liza is fucking dead, who knows. And she's just trying to sugarcoat these things so that she can just, maybe fall in the footsteps of her mother. who cares if she's fucking lying? It's just giving motivations towards Rico carrying on with her adventure, and I think that's totally fine.
Yeah, and it totally fits with the narration at the end of the movie, too, where Liza's whole goal, even if she's dead, which I don't believe Liza's dead, but I guess I'd have to see. It fits into the narration of, I want my daughter to choose her own life. I want her to discover things on her own. I want her to be able to make decisions. If she chooses to come down the abyss, I want her to do that, and I want you to be her first obstacle. I want you to try and stop her, but make her better so she can face what she's going to face going down the abyss. I think this movie presents a lot of obstacles and overcomings, and I think that even if they just barely skim by, I think that's a really interesting plot progression, and it forces a lot of character development and mysteries to be solved and intrigue. So I just think that the narration at the end to kind of push forward and not wrap up the story, but wrap the end of this movie to encourage and entice for the next thing to come. I thought that was, in my opinion, nice.
I mean, I like all the intrigue. I like the mystery and stuff that's being built up here in the film. But the problem is, as I said previously, it feels like they're giving us a carrot on the stick here, and they're not giving us any little nibbles to want us to keep going. It just feels like, well, it's always out of reach. They just keep piling stuff onto us without really giving us anything where it's like, oh, yeah, that was a satisfying conclusion to that one little thing that then builds off into more stuff. It's just nothing but mystery right now. And it isn't super satisfying at this point here. Yeah. And I know where the story goes. I know we get conclusions of things which get built up more. I know it eventually gets much better, but just for this film, it didn't do it for me.
Yeah, it doesn't stand alone very well. And one other random problem I have is the
pedophile stuff.
No, I just can't really.
I think the answer to that was yes.
I can't really get invested in there being a sense of danger, which I definitely think they want there to be, purely because of the fact our protagonists are such young children. Granted, the fact it was rated NC-17 for some reason did make me go, maybe they will fucking eviscerate these kids.
Just you wait.
I just was never at a point where I'm like, oh, there's genuine dangers they're gonna face because, they're fucking 9.
The big thing too is that of course they're in the first 2 layers of the abyss. Granted, there's not a ton that really happens within the first 2 layers. As they mentioned, you have to be a blue whistle to get into the 3rd layer, and there's fucking 3 ranks higher than the blue whistle, so it's halfway up the fucking totem pole basically. The first 2 layers aren't super dangerous. There's obviously threats. They have the bird thing that steals Rico, and I think that immediately presents that there is in fact danger. If Reg misses fucking shot, then he kills her, and that's just game over. I think they do establish that. I will say though, I haven't really talked about my criticisms of this movie. I will agree. I think the anime adaptation, just as a whole, really limits it as well. There of course is all this intrigue being built up, but I don't take that as a big criticism because I know there is a second movie. This goes into a part, and you can watch them back to back. This is like watching fucking Spider-Verse, for example, where you have to wait 10 fucking years to watch the next one. That shit pisses me off, and I don't give it much credit because I have to wait 10 fucking years to watch the next one.
I was going to bring up Spider-Verse actually as an example of a film that does this 2-part thing well, because we do actually get big moments throughout that. Unlike this film, we do actually get answers to previous things, more intrigue built up, and then yeah, it sucks that it does eventually cut off and be well, I guess you have to wait a while for the next film, but we still do get satisfying elements within that film, which I feel like this one is lacking.
And you interrupted me, but what I was trying to say is the fact that there's no fucking wait here. There is the second one, you can watch it immediately. You don't have to fucking pussyfoot around with it. If you're interested in the world building, which is all this one is doing, it's trying to sell you on Made in Abyss as a whole, which I think it does an incredible job of. You can immediately just go and watch the next one right in the series, and there you go. And then that one obviously is much more of an actual, I'm not going to try to fucking say too much about the next movie, but that one has much more of a defined character arcs that you go through and feels like it completes a set of the story, which is, makes sense because it's the end of the first season. So I don't take that as a huge criticism because, it's working with what it has. They do cut out some things that I wish they kept in, like the fucking monkeys. The monkeys! There's these weird monkeys in the fucking trees, and they like throw rocks at them and shit. You know, there's just like minor things like that they cut out that I'm not a huge fan of. There's other things that they did cut out that I am a fan of, like them hanging Rico up naked. Based for not showing that shit. Thank you, movie. Cut out all that weird shit. Big fan.
They did show her
too.
pinned up naked at one point, though.
Did they?
Yeah.
I blanked out then, dude. Let's go. Never mind. But yeah, no, I think it is definitely limited, as it is just, you know, a fucking anime season just cut in half and cut for brevity so that it fits into a movie's scenario. But I think basically everything else is super well done. Obviously, the art direction is incredible. The animation is really well done. I think the monsters, obviously, they're fucking CG, but they have an interesting filter on them that makes them feel like they're much more like part of the scene. I think it works very well.
I was gonna say, I was having so much trouble figuring out what the fuck was happening with them. I was like, I couldn't tell
the big
if they were CG
exactly,
because they did they looked very strange.
Yeah, no, they're CG. Also, the bird guys, those were fucking 2D animated, obviously. But yeah, the big snake guy, it was CG, which is like a filter on him, which I think works. I think it looks interesting. I think it honestly kind of adds to like the mystery of it all. Like there's some fucking like otherworldly monster basically, which is what it is. You know, like everything else is relatively based in reality, and then we have these big fucking crazy monsters going on. They do establish, of course, the curse of the abyss as well, which I think is interesting. We do see the effects of it a little bit when Rico fucking starts vomiting when she gets taken up high to the nest. But yeah, I definitely agree. I think they could have had a bit more conflict going through it just to add a bit of intrigue. This is mostly just giving you a shit ton of information about the abyss and trying to basically put you in the shoes of the character, and I think it does a very good job of that.
I agree. I wish there was just more of it is all. Which is that truly a criticism?
The more of it is the next movie you can watch immediately after this one if you want.
Alrighty, well, boys. One last thing that I have to say. Jackson, you famously do not like the tower trope in animes, yet you like a big pit. Why is that?
I don't like the tower trope?
Yeah, you said previously that you don't like the trope of like, oh, it's a big tower that the people need to climb, where it's like a bunch of floors or whatever the fuck.
Bro would not like Tower of God in any aspect.
Genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. Did it give like an example of all I can think of with that is like fucking SAO. What other series would I not like that fits that genre?
I don't know, you just said it's overdone.
Tower of God.
I genuinely have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. There's like a tower in Hunter x Hunter, but I think it's fine. Honestly, I like the straightforward progression. If I said that previously, I don't agree with it anymore.
We should watch Tower of God, Jackson.
I'd rather read the manhwa.
We'll read it then. I recommend it highly.
The manhwa has really terrible art, though.
I have a million billion fucking manga to read. I got 700 chapters of Initial D to get to before I get to that, so I'll let you know if I start it eventually. Anyways, looks like we are done talking about this. My rank hasn't changed. It's still an A+. Anybody else's changed?
No.
I mean, I never really settled on anything in particular. I guess I'll go with a B. I'll just give it a flat B.
I knew it.
And my rank remains unchanged. I'm still at a C-.
Jesus Christ.
Dylan, yours was an S-, right?
Yes, sir.
Fair enough. The lens it at a B+. Honestly, I mean, Tanner's rank makes sense. If all of the positive of this movie was the super well done world building and all the intrigue it draws to just the setting, if you didn't really like any of that, then a C- makes sense. Obviously, I assume that's mostly being carried by the art and production aspects of it, which you didn't really talk too much about, but fair enough.
I thought it looked very pretty.